So welcome back. Some of you, I can see some of you were here yesterday and you're back today. We're here for mornings this week, and to be honest, if this is popular, if you guys find this helpful, I know a couple of you emailed me after the session yesterday, then we'll carry these on in one form or another. I think sometimes it's nice just to have snippets of chance to think about things, but also maybe on Instagram where it doesn't feel like where it feels a bit more personal, a little bit more down to you rather than your company. So if that feels sort of something you want more of, then do let us know. But this week we're focusing on 4 of the top topics. So yesterday we were looking at career planning. You can absolutely go in and just watch that one because these are getting shared after they're done live. Today we're looking at non-promotion work. And then we're looking at speaking up in meetings and networking as well over the rest of the week. And there's a bit of a theme across some of these. There was a bit of crossover as we go through. So today we're looking at non-promotion work. And what this essentially is the stuff you get busy with, the things that fill up your to-do list that don't really add any value to your experience, your credibility, or what you're known for. So this is the types of things that somebody needs to do, and at no point am I going to discourage you from being helpful. We just want to be conscious here. But things that really, it doesn't have to be you, it could be anybody. So it could be things like taking the minutes in the meeting, reorganizing the online folders, organizing the birthday cards, or booking the team lunch. So the types of things that somebody in the team has to do, and more often than not, you might find that you're the one volunteering to do it. And that might be because you want to do it. And if you want to do it, absolutely go ahead and do it. Or it might be because nobody else volunteered and you couldn't deal with the silence, so you put your hand up and volunteered to do it. So we're going to look really at what you do if you find yourself volunteering, but also managers in the room, just to be conscious of this, to make sure it's fair for your team as well as they go through. So what I'd like you to do before we get started is just to take a sort of view of where you currently are with this. If you can have a look through your diary, so have a look over your diary for the last few weeks, just scroll through the types of things that were filling up your time, and have a look through your to-do list, scroll back through the types of things on your to-do list. And I want you to look through and see how happy are you with how you've spent your time. And to look at this, there's 2 criteria I think that's worth summing things up to see how much value you were getting out of them. So the first is essentially how confident you were doing them. So whether these were things that actually you could do with your eyes closed, or whether actually maybe they took a little bit of practice, you needed to build on them, or whether they are things that you are capable of doing. So capability and confidence aren't necessarily the same thing. Let me give you a common example here. You might have the opportunity to give a presentation that you are very capable doing. It's a topic you know lots and lots about. You are absolutely not confident doing that because you don't give presentations very often. So this would be something that stretches you because it's outside of your comfort zone, because it's low in confidence. But there'll also be things that maybe you don't have much capability or much confidence doing, that you're doing for the very first time, and that's going to absolutely be pushing you even more. What we want to look at here are things that we are very capable of doing and very confident doing, say we can do with our eyes closed, and how much of our time are we spending doing that. So I want you to have a look through your diary and identify those tasks, but in particular, of those tasks, the ones you volunteered to do, the ones that maybe somebody else could have done if it wasn't you, or maybe somebody else could have taken the turn to do if there's a few of you that are able to do that. So just take a moment to look at this. I would love it if you could share with me in the comment section something that you're seeing that you did, something you volunteered to do, that maybe looking back at it you think, yeah, maybe someone else could have done that. So just if you can share with me one thing that you volunteered to do that somebody else might have been able to do. That'll be a nice cue for me to know that you've looked through that diary and that to-do list by now. Okay. So here we go, writing up minutes from a meeting, absolutely, yeah. Having daily, getting asked to find it almost impossible to say no. Yeah. Finding space in multiple calendars for a three-way meeting. Yeah, it takes so much time, doesn't it? No problem. typing's like. Okay, yeah. Yeah, diary management's a really big one, actually. And minutes. Yeah, excellent. Okay, so hopefully we've all found a couple of these things. Now, what's key here is you working out what you want to be doing. So some of the time you're going to be quite happy being helpful. Some of the time it's going to be good exposure for you, or actually it's going to do a favour that might come back to you at another point. But a lot of the time it's not like that. No one remembers that you did it, and it just kept you busy, stopped you from doing other things. Reviewing the agenda used by regional officers for ensuring meetings and improving it. Yeah, reviewing agendas, yeah, writing up actions, all that kind of stuff. So what do we want to think about here? Now, first thing is to think about why you've done it. So have you done it because somebody asked you to do it, or have you done it because you volunteered? And when looking at that, say it's not the intention to say no to all of this stuff. That's absolutely not what I'm going to encourage you to do. What I'd like you to do is be conscious about what you are saying yes to. So you want probably to be seen as helpful somewhat, okay? You don't want to be seen probably as the helpful one. So if you've got a team of 8 of you and you're the one that's always helpful, that's probably a little bit of an assumption from people that they can just give you stuff. But you certainly want to be seen as helpful. So you want to think about things like, why is the person asking for your help? Do they genuinely need your help? Is this something somebody else could do? Why is nobody else offering to do it? Okay. How is it going to benefit you by doing it? Or do you just want to support this person at this particular time? So what is the process that you're thinking about when selecting whether or not to do it? Or are you automatically jumping in and saying yes because you find it hard to say no? So some scary research, albeit not surprising. I think the research here is it's still, there's some of it that maybe is a little bit more shocking for me. When we are asked in a meeting, there was some fantastic research done by Linda Babcock. She reviewed essentially why people were saying yes and who in particular is saying yes to what she called this non-promotion work. So imagine you are in a meeting and there's a mixture of people in that meeting. If somebody says, okay, great, now I need a volunteer to write up the minutes. What will happen is it will probably go really quiet, and some people will look down, some people might pull out their phones, might look at each other, and eventually somebody will go, I'll do it. And that person will be volunteering themselves to do that piece of work, and everybody else has that sigh of relief thinking, oh, I've got away with that. Now, we're all familiar with that situation, I think. What we find particularly shocking is women are 48% more likely to be the person that says, I'll do it. So essentially 50% more likely you're going to find a woman saying that than a man. So straight away, what we're seeing here is women spending more of their time doing this non-promotion work. And just by the sake of the title, you can see the impact that's going to do. You're going to be busy doing this stuff, which means you haven't got the capacity to do the stuff that is going to stretch you, that is going to get you that exposure. So straight away, we want to be making sure that we aren't putting ourselves at a disadvantage compared to the other people in our team. It's not to say that men don't do this, it's just that women are 50% more likely to be the one that does it. This is the bit that scares me though. When managers volunteer somebody else, so if they're in the room and they're like, right, I need a volunteer, and then they look around the room and think, who can I ask? They are 44% more likely to ask a woman. That does not change whether the manager is a man or a woman. So this is a bit telling here, because I think we naturally, as women, nature or nurture, let's have that argument another day, but we certainly volunteer more often, and there's a perception we are more likely to say yes. So as the manager looks around the room and thinks, I need a volunteer, there's some unconscious bias going on of them thinking, well, they're more likely to say yes, that's an easier conversation, I will volunteer that woman, even if the manager is a woman. So those of you I mentioned, if you're a manager as well as if you're an individual, if you are a manager, I would absolutely encourage you to be conscious of this for yourself. Are you asking the person who you think will just say yes the easiest, because we all love a shortcut? And if so, how is that impacting that person compared to the development of the other people on the team? Yeah, it is scary. So when we are asked, so let's say the manager's asked, okay? So when asked the question, can you do this? You do have the option of saying no, albeit probably use a different word than no. I'll come on to some other words shortly. But what we see is 76% of women will say yes, whereas it's about 50% of men will say yes. So majority of people on both sides will actually say yes, but certainly there's a lot more women that will say yes than men. And again, I know I've seen this in team meetings myself, I'm sure some of you have, where somebody is asked and they say no, and there's somebody who likes to volunteer. I'd sit there and go, oh, how have they done that? And find that incredibly awkward. So what I'm going to do is give you some advice on how to go about changing this if this is impacting you, without potentially having to sit in the room and say no, because we don't, this is already going to be outside of your comfort zone in terms of not volunteering. So you don't want to probably jump as far as saying, right, not only do you not volunteer, but you also say no when somebody asks, because that's probably quite a hard stretch to go from one to the other. So what we want to do instead is think about, what do you want to do? And what do you want to do less of? So I want you to just take a moment to do this at the moment. Just jot down some things that you think you're volunteering for, whether this is regularly, so whether these are daily things or things that just happen over a course of a few weeks. Write down a few things that you want to do less of. Now, once you've got those things, what you want to do is work out how you're going to do less of it. The really important thing to note here is there's somebody who's going to notice you're probably not doing those things, and that somebody is probably going to be your manager most of the time. And your manager's opinion of you absolutely counts. So we don't want to suddenly start surprising our manager by saying no to things. So what do we want to do? What I'm going to recommend you do is take a bit of time to think about this. And if you think this impacts you, use this excuse of this session, use the excuse of Women's Day, or whatever you want to do as your way in to start a conversation with your manager. And I want you to say something. And again, this is recorded, so you can rewind this and script this out if you'd like. But I want you to say something that essentially asks them for help. So we don't want to go in and tell them we are not doing things, but instead we want to go in and ask them for help, because that's a much more collaborative conversation. Conversations with your manager, really you want them to feel like they're two-way conversations, and your manager walks away feeling proud of themselves that they're a good manager, rather than feeling responsible for you doing things that you don't want to do. So we're going to go into that conversation and say something like, look, I know you've always got my back and you've always supported me with things, and you're a really big advocate for my development. Recently, I became aware of how much I volunteer to do things that probably make me really busy, but they're things that maybe don't add so much value to my work or aren't stretching me as much. Now, I really want you to know that I want to be helpful. I pride myself on being helpful, and I don't at any point want to leave you in the lurch. What I do want to do is make sure that I'm not penalising myself by always being the one in the team that volunteers. So we've given them all of that understanding of what's going on. So you're stating your intentions. What are you doing? Why are you having this conversation? And it's coming from a good place, okay? Please avoid the word but at any point in that. So I know you've really got my back, but isn't going to lead well into the conversation. I'll give you that example. If you were to say to me, I really like your jumper, but why did you buy it in blue? You're like, oh, you don't like my jumper. Okay? So straight away, as soon as we say but, it discounts what we said before. So we just want to say and. Okay? I really like your jumper, and why did you go for blue? Okay? So a bit more of a relaxed conversation. So we're going in with framing the intentions. Now we're going to tell them what we're going to do. So what I've looked at is what I volunteer for, and I'm going to make a conscious effort to sit quietly in the meetings when you look for a volunteer. So when you ask for help, I'm going to really work on, and using the phrase works on tells them this is a challenge for you, so they want to support you. I'm going to work on not being the person that says yes. So I'd really love your support by just knowing that when I do that, I'm doing that really for my own development, and know that if that meeting comes to an end and no one's volunteered, of course we can have a conversation. Of course, I'm not going to leave you in the lurch. I want to make sure my brand in that meeting isn't one that is always associated with the person being yes, and I want to give everybody else in the room a chance for them to volunteer to do things as well. So your manager at that point would hopefully be quite proud of you. They'll notice that that's something that you've been doing, and they'll be quite aware that that's a good move for you, but you're also not leaving them in the lurch. Okay? So just being conscious of it there to make sure that they're on board with that change. if you don't tell them what you're doing and you suddenly just stop volunteering, that will lead them to speculate what you're doing. So if they don't know your intentions, they'll guess them, and they might guess that you're not interested, that you're no longer into the role, that you don't want to help the team, that you're in a bad mood. It could be anything, they're speculating. So if you tell them the intentions, that's not going to happen. You want to take them on that journey with you. Now, when it comes to not volunteering in the room, it's going to feel awkward for you, even if you've got your manager's blessing. So just a couple of things to notice here. So what will happen is you're going to have that sort of period of time, and it will probably be 3 to 5 seconds before somebody breaks. For you, it might feel like 10 to 20 seconds because you're not used to doing it. You're used to jumping in there first. Or it might be that other people are expecting you to, so they wait a little bit longer to see whether or not you do. So you want to just let that time go past and expect it to take that long. So count to 10, for example. So rather than thinking the voice in your head is jumping in, you want to distract it and count to 10. So the voice in your head will probably say something like, oh my God, look, no one's volunteering. You're going to let everyone down. This is so awkward. Everyone expects you to do it. You better do it. Come on, hurry up and do it. This is just, God, we're never going to leave this room unless you do it. It's going to be saying all this unhelpful stuff in your head that's going to make you feel pressure to just go, yeah, I'll do it. And so we don't want that voice in our head. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do now is count back from 10. So just where you are in your head, count back from 10. I'm going to keep talking, so hopefully you're counting by now. I'm going to keep talking to you, and I'm going to keep talking to you about that voice in your head and how unhelpful it is and what a pain it is and how we need to master what that voice is doing, but how it's a long, lifelong journey to try and be able to do that, because that voice has so much impact on us and it's instinctively there. Hey, so you've probably got to about 10 by now. So what you probably noticed was that you managed to count, but you didn't hear what I was saying, or you stopped counting because you were listening to what I was saying. You can't do both. You can't listen to both. And this is, I think, a really good shortcut for the voice in your head. This is by no means the way to manage the voice in your head, but it is a shortcut. So at certain points, like this sort of 5 seconds where you don't want to volunteer, counting back from 10 will mean that you don't hear the voice in your head telling you all the other stuff. And by 10 seconds, hopefully somebody else is going to put their hand up, and if not, your manager hopefully will nominate somebody else because they know what you're doing. But at the end of the day, because you've told your manager, it's not your problem to volunteer when there's other people in the room that aren't. So just staying silent is step number 1. If people do come to you, okay, then what you can do is just highlight the other stuff you volunteered for. So if people says, well, actually, Sam, did you want to help with this? And it's not your manager, it's somebody else in the room. Then what you can say is, oh, do you know, as you know, I always like to help and I always like to volunteer. At the moment, I've still got X, Y, and Z on my to-do list from the volunteering that I've done in the previous meetings. So I need to get those off my desk before I can take anything new on. What you're doing by that is saying, yes, I love being helpful. And look, I am helpful. And look how much I've got. So does somebody want to take this little one? Because I've got all of this over here. So you're doing that in a really positive way. And then that means that somebody else in the room, that kind of projects it back to them. Hopefully somebody else is going to volunteer as well. So do all of this with a smile on your face. Do all of this with a positive attitude and keeping your manager in the loop. So this isn't construed as you just changing your mind on whether or not you're going to be helpful for the team. So what I think is really worth doing as well is just making sure you have something that makes you understand why it's worth it for you. So why do you want to do this? Now, yesterday, those of you on yesterday, we were looking at actions and things that you want to do that are going to help your career. And we were looking at things that were going to get in the way of them. And for a lot of people, that was probably going to be time. So if you have that thing that you want to do, so whether that thing is some networking, some relationships, a project you want to get involved in, some revision you want to do, so other things that you want to be doing with your time, that is ideally what you want to replace this time with. So we want to make sure you're getting something that's really exciting and juicy in there to give you that sense of satisfaction when you are saying no. Okay? So when you're not doing it, you're thinking, and because I haven't done that, I can now get on and do this. So you're getting some kind of positive reinforcement about what you're gaining from it as well. Okay, any questions on that? Anything anyone wants me to talk about a little bit more? Any questions on that topic? This is a learnt skill, and you'll probably find you come across people who have learned it incredibly well. With all learnt skills, it's really good to essentially, I think, look at people who do it well. So if you are in the meetings and you do see people who are really good at not taking anything on, watch them, look at them, and rather than think, oh, it's not fair, look at them and think, oh, how did you do that? What are you doing? Pay attention to what it is. But you probably find as they start scribbling down some notes at the point that someone looks with some volunteers or diverting eye contact. As soon as you've got eye contact, that's it. You feel obliged. After changing a role, when you're still asked to do things from your okay, so that's very, very common. So you step up into the next job, but because you can do the job below, you're still asked to do it. Now, if how to handle this really depends on whether you've moved team or not. So if you've stayed in one team with the same manager, then your manager is going to be really a good person to help you solve this, because it's up to them what you're doing. So what you should do is go to them and say, hey, look, I'm really enjoying these parts of the role and I'm building out all this new experience. I am still struggling to offload what I was doing before. Can we set a deadline on that? Because what you don't want to do is just leave the team in the lurch. So you want to ideally say, like, right, 3 weeks from now, this is the handover period. I will help them learn everything. I will show them what to do, but I won't be doing things for them. So you want really to show them how to do it for themselves. And then at that cutoff point, of course, if somebody's got an issue, they can escalate it to you because you'll be a senior person, but they're not coming to you to do that work. A big part of that is getting them to do it for themselves from the off. So quite often when we train people, we can show them what to do by doing it. What you want to do as quickly as possible is get them to work to the point where they can work it out for themselves. So really coaching them to do it. So they come to you and say, how do you do this? You turn around and go, well, what do you think the first step should be? And what do you think the impact of that will be? And what could go wrong if you did it that way? Or how could you do that better? So instead you're asking them questions to reassure them that they can do it for themselves. Because they probably want to do it for themselves, but they want that comfort blanket of you being there. Okay? So we want to try and give people that confidence and encouragement for them to step up and replace that as well. When it's to another team, it's going to be a bit more challenging because you'll have two managers going on, so you might have a little bit of internal politics you indirectly end up getting involved in. That's well worth negotiating right from the off. So, okay, brilliant, I've got this role, I'm going to start this role on this date, and this role stops on this date, and whether there's a little bit of a handover period or not, you want to agree that right from the off. And then once you're in that role, you need to keep your manager well informed if you're getting pulled across, because really that's not a conversation for you to have, it's more of a conversation for them to have, because it's outside of just one person's team. So it's a common issue, it absolutely is a common issue. What you've just got to make sure that you do is, when it is in your team, that you are aware of what you are doing that's outside of your role and what somebody else should be doing at which point, because you need to learn, you've got a new job to learn, and that's more important. Any other questions? Does that help, Steph? Oh, I did that yesterday as well. I nearly sneezed, but didn't sneeze. Caught it. Okay. All right. So, a few of you are just coming in now. I'm just coming to the question stage. What we do with these though is we will share them. Brilliant. We'll share them on the page so you can go straight back and watch it right from the beginning. I'm doing 4 of these this week. So we're looking at speaking up in meetings tomorrow and then networking on Thursday. I don't know how I decided to talk about networking in 30 minutes because I could talk about it all day, but I will just focus on some sort of top tips, particularly now we're back. Networking is happening face to face. And I think it's quite outside people's comfort zones now to go in. Networking can be outside people's comfort zones anyway. Especially when we view it as that kind of awkward, stiff icebreaker conversation. But now you've been at home for 2 years and you haven't had to do it, it's even more so. So we want to get everyone back in so you can make it quite natural quite quickly. I Win on that note. So I Win are doing an event on Thursday in person. I Win is a women's group, but it's not just for women. In fact, sometimes I've gone to their events, there's been more men than women. So please, everybody feel encouraged to go and have a look at their page on LinkedIn and sign up to their event on Thursday about technology in insurance. But the most important thing is that you turn up and you're seeing people. So it's well worth connecting with them. and meeting some people that you haven't met before, but also probably some people that you have. Unfortunately, I won't be there this Thursday. We're having to take turns to go out in the evenings. I've got 3 nights next week, so I'm not allowed any this week, really. All right, any more questions? Let me know. Otherwise, this will go on the feed and you can watch it back later, particularly the script if you want to prepare for that conversation yourselves. All right, I will see you tomorrow morning. Have a good day.